Grab the duct tape and mentally prepare yourself for yet another mind-expanding knowledge bomb from America's #1 business coach, Clay Clark.
That's it. Bombs away.
Yes, and no. Not excited about this show, but I got to get the truth out there, so here we go. Dr. Breck, have you seen this call by Al Gore where he's asking for the world to do a great reset? Have you heard about this?
I hadn't seen this yet.
I'm going to read you these encouraging words on this beautiful Sunday morning before church. And this is a screen grab edition. This will just be out on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this because we have millions of people sharing certain posts.
Sure.
And I'm currently in Facebook jail, which is a
Right.
place where you go when you share the truth. You go there, which beats a concentration camp, but that's kind of it's the if you share the truth, you got to go to Facebook jail. So here we go. This is a article posted on June 24th of this year. So I guess it'd be June 25th of 2020 on Fox News. It reads: Al Gore, UN Secretary General, and others now demanding great reset of global capitalism. These are truly dangerous times for those who support individual liberty and free markets. And I read, the economic, social, and political chaos caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. By the way, the COVID-19 outbreak isn't causing this. It's government's reaction to it. But anyway, the economic, social, and political chaos caused by the COVID-19 outbreak and the Black Lives Matter protests have for months captured the attention of virtually every American, and for good reason. These are incredibly important issues worthy of significant and thoughtful debate. Okay. But while most Americans have been preoccupied with protests and pandemics, a potentially bigger story has managed to slip beneath the radar. A growing movement among the world's most powerful leaders to call for a reset of the entire globe economy. At a meeting hosted by the highly influential World Economic Forum earlier in June, powerful officials from nonprofits, government, business, academia, labor unions, and activist groups announced that their plan for a great reset of global capitalism. It's a proposal, they acknowledge, that has only been made possible because of the opportunity provided by the economic destruction caused by the novel coronavirus. Supporters and attendees of the meeting include Prince Charles, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, the CEO of MasterCard, the CEO of BP, Gina Jopanath, the Chief Economist of the International Monetary Fund, among others. In an article published on the World Economic Forum's website, Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of WEF, wrote on the Great Reset, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. The WEF meeting featured a powerful lineup of global leaders, all of whom seemingly agreed that the Great Reset is necessary to rebalance economies, promote fairness, and create greater equity within societies and among nations. The purpose of the Great Reset isn't merely to enact policies that would lead to additional wealth redistribution. The purpose of the Great Reset isn't to enact policies that would lead to additional wealth redistribution. Again, the purpose of the Great Reset isn't merely to enact policies that would lead to great wealth redistribution, but rather to completely overhaul the world's existing structures and institutions. Among other things, Schwab has said of the Great Reset, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. How exactly are these leaders planning on convincing Americans and citizens of every other industrialized nation to abandon modern capitalism? By scaring people into believing that these changes are essential for the next step for stopping the next great crisis the world will face when the COVID-19 pandemic finally subsides: climate change. At the World Economic Forum's June meeting, one speaker after another cited climate change and environmental sustainability as the key justifications for radical economic changes that would include massive new regulations and restrictions on economic activity, wealth taxes, and expansive government programs comparable to the Green New Deal. For example, Sharon Burrell, the General Secretary of the International Trade Confederation, said, "We want an end to the profit at all costs mentality because if we don't build an economic future within a sustainable framework in which we are respectful of our planetary boundaries and the need to change our energy and technology systems, then we will not have a living planet for human beings. The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that the human tragedy must be a wake-up call," said the United Nations Secretary General. "We must build more equal, inclusive, and sustainable economies and societies that are more resilient in the face of pandemics, climate change, and many other global changes we face." And if that weren't enough, Al Gore, the king of climate alarmism, recently touted the Great Reset during an interview on NBC's Today Show. NBC's the Today Show. "So I think it is time for a great reset," Alvin Gore said. "We've got to fix a lot of these problems that we have that have allowed people to fester, that have been allowed to fester for way too long. And the climate crisis is an opportunity to create tens of millions of new jobs, clean up the air, and reduce the death rate from pandemics. By the way, because the air pollution from burning fossil fuels heightens the death rates from coronavirus." So this is a time for a reset to fix a bunch of other challenges, first among them a climate reset. Dr. Breck, what are your thoughts on doing a great economic worldwide reset?
I don't know. First, I've got to stop my head from spinning because that's a lot to take in right there, Clay. But no, I'm not for a global economic reset, redistribution of wealth. I'd like to see where Al Gore's statement there is founded as far as the burning of fossil fuels and the coronavirus connection. And so I have seen nothing to say that or substantiate that claim.
Now, you're a doctor, so I'm going to read it to you again here. And I'll get out the sock puppets for myself because maybe I just don't understand the logic here. But he says, Al Gore says, "So I think this is a time for a great reset. We've got to fix a lot of these problems that have been allowed to fester for way too long. And the climate crisis is an opportunity to create tens of millions of new jobs, clean up the air, and reduce the death rate from pandemics. By the way, because the air pollution from burning fossil fuels heightens the death rates from coronavirus. So this is a time for a reset to fix a bunch of challenges, first among them the climate crisis." Does that make any sense to you?
Holy cow!
No, not particularly. I mean, I know that Al Gore has, for as long as I can remember, been the biggest champion of strong response to climate change, and it looks like, for me, what I can tell is just as an opportunist to jump on board and to grab attention for his particular cause, while people are looking at coronavirus and everything else. It just seems like, he's just jumping on the bandwagon and trying to grab some of the attention.
Jason, what's your thoughts on this? Are you a big fan of a great reset where all countries team up together to totally reset the world and and we all team up on the same team? Everybody has the same reset at the same time. Is this a good idea in your mind?
Well, I know I'm not allowed to cuss on the podcast, so all I can say is hell no. Like, that's the dumbest effing thing I've ever heard. And the sentiment behind it, so it's funny because you asked Brett, who's a doctor, "Hey, does this make sense?" And he's like, "Well, not really." Well, because it's said in a way, Al Gore is really good about doing that. He'll say something in a way where unless you're on his quote-unquote level, you won't get it. And then you break it down, you realize, oh, he's really saying something very stupid, but he says it in a way that makes you go, I don't know what that means, so you must be smarter than me, so I should agree with you?
Now, I want to make sure we're getting this, and then we'll wrap up today's show here,
and
okay?
even the tens of millions or whatever the number was he said of new jobs, and I'm thinking, but what about all of the jobs that you're eliminating?
Right.
Like you're just trading one for the other if that's the case.
Now, what happens is a lot of times we have a puzzle. We're going to play a puzzle. Maybe you're doing a puzzle of mountains, okay?
Right.
And you're doing it for maybe Thanksgiving. You're sitting down with the kids, and you've got this puzzle, and you're putting the pieces together. But because you've seen the cover of the puzzle, you know that you're building this beautiful landscape, right? So you know that this piece fits in here, and this piece fits in here because you've seen the puzzle,
right?
So for the listeners out there that are not familiar with the puzzle, I know a lot of people have found this show because they heard this show or that show, or they found this post or that post. But I'm trying to put the puzzle together for you.
But without the cover picture.
There you go. So what I'm doing right now is I'm saying the Great Reset is the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to build here. It's a
That's
great reset.
the
We're
big
going
picture.
to one world government.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is the Fox, and I'm putting this all on the screen grab so everybody can look it up. Fox, there's an article called Daniel Hoffman, China's Assault on Texas. This project threatens U.S. national security. Okay? So Texas is one state beneath us here in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas, I'm going to read this to you, folks, and I don't want anyone to freak out, but feel free to freak out because I'm freaking out, but I don't want you to freak out. I'll freak out. You don't freak out. Okay, here we go. So beginning in 2015, GH America Investment Group, this is an organization owned by China, purchased over 130,000 acres of property in Val Verde County. GH America is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese government. And this particular organization is notorious for its so-called re-education camps, where China detains Muslims and other ethnic minorities against their will and violates their human rights. This land has been purchased in Texas by the organization that runs their re-education camps.
Right.
Breck, why is that not a good idea?
Oh, for a number of reasons.
Why would we not want to sell
yeah.
our land in Texas to the Chinese?
Right.
At the same time, Al Gore is talking about a great reset. Because in China, if you don't agree with the communist message,
Mm-hmm.
they take you off to the re-education camps
yeah,
to
I mean, they've
kill
secured
you, to maim you, to torture you.
acre
You just get
concentration camp. I mean,
In Texas.
In Texas, yeah.
What could they possibly be doing with this land? What do you think? Is this going to be a fun laser tag?
I'm guessing
center?
not. I
Is
mean,
this
they
gonna be
may
a
already be
volleyball court?
building dormitories for you and I right now.
Right. Now, another interesting thing, and these are not positive things. I'm just trying to put it
No.
all together, okay? So we're going to look this up. 54 scientists. I'm trying to tie it all together so we all see the puzzle, folks, because you got to see how it all fits together. You got to see it, okay? So 54 scientists, all right, have been fired by the NIH, the National Institute of Health. And for 5,000 mega points, Dr. Breck, who's in charge of the National Institute of Health?
I'm not positive on her name, but
Dr. Fauci.
I was about to say,
Oh, okay.
looks a lot like a Keebler elf.
So, okay, so Dr. Fauci is in charge of the National Institute of Health.
okay.
He's the one who's on TV telling you all the time what
Right.
to do, wear masks, don't wear masks. He's the one giving us tips about 6 feet apart, mitigate. I'm reading this to you. 54 scientists have resigned or been fired as a result of an ongoing investigation by the National Institute of Health into failure of the NIH grantees to disclose financial ties to foreign governments. 189 scientists whom the NIH has investigated to date, China was the source of their undisclosed support. Now, China bought the land in where, Dr. Breck?
In Texas.
In Texas. And China happens to be communist.
Communist, yes.
And they happen to have re-education camps.
Mhm.
And they are the ones who now are involved in the National Institute of Health,
Right.
who we're listening to. Now, Dr. Fauci is explaining right now. He's on TV. I'm pulling this up. He's up there talking right now. This was as of 11 hours ago. He's up there saying, and I'm looking up the article here. It says, Anthony Fauci.
Grammarly
Oh, thank
does
you.
more.
Thank you for this commercial. It says, Anthony Fauci praises New York's coronavirus response. They did it correctly.
Excuse me?
So Dr. Fauci.
Great response.
Dr. Fauci.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's look up this real quick. I want to look at this one more thing. I'll make sure we're getting the puzzle. We're going back to the puzzle, okay? The puzzle is a global reset. That's where we're headed.
Right.
So let's talk about this. Who funded the Wuhan lab? Who funded the Wuhan lab?
The United States. Thanks
Okay.
to Dr. Fauci.
So let's look this up. Here it is. Here it is. So Dr. Fauci, this is April 28th, 2020. Dr. Fauci backed the controversial Wuhan lab with U.S. dollars for risky coronavirus research. This is in Newsweek. This is not rightwing.com. This is not tinfoilhat.com. This is not religiousfundamentalist.com. This is Newsweek. All right? Then it says, last year, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the organization led by Dr. Fauci, funded the scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and other institutions for the gain of function research on bat coronaviruses. All right. Many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans, because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from accidental release. So, Breck, let's role play this.
Right.
Pretend we're hanging out, okay?
Sure.
So I'll say, Breck, how was your weekend? And you tell me how your
Hey,
weekend
it was great. Yeah, had a good time.
Okay.
Hung out with the family.
Bre-
How about
Bre-
you?
Breck, you wouldn't believe what I did this weekend.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I went into caves in China,
Right.
and I wrestled bats out of caves.
Okay.
And I grabbed the bats, and I isolated their naturally occurring coronaviruses.
Right.
And I focused on doing what I call gain-of-function research, where I tried to increase the transmissibility of the disease.
Yeah.
You know, and people criticize it because it could spread it could create a pandemic.
I kind of see where their criticism
But
might come,
that's what
Clay.
I've been doing over the weekend. You know?
I think maybe we shouldn't hang out anymore.
Think about that for a second. So the very guy
Yeah.
advising our country is the one who authorized the funding of
Right.
gain-of-function research
Mm-hmm.
to be conducted in China. And China, by the way, is communist.
They are.
And China has 54 of our scientists just got fired for failing to disclose they get paid by China. And they just bought 130,000 acres in Texas. And the organization that bought the land in Texas is the same organization that happens to run their re-education camps.
Wait, but who's developing the vaccine for coronavirus?
Oh, the guy who serves on the board? You mean who serves on the board? Oh,
Yeah.
let me pull that up real quick.
With Bill and Melinda Gates?
Let me pull that
Yeah.
up here. Okay, let me pull it up here. I just want to make sure that all the listeners see this, because it would be foolish for anybody to trust the words coming out of my mouth. It would be better to assume that I am not an honest person and to then do your own research to see if I'm making stuff up. And so we have to look this stuff up. We have to assume, again, that I'm not an ethical person. You have to assume that if you're out there assuming that I'm a good guy and blindly trusting me, that's not good.
Because most of us would kind of inherently disagree with, one level of conflict of interest.
Yes.
But in Dr. Fauci's case, I'm seeing multiple levels of conflict of interest.
It's like that movie Inception. It's like you think you get it, and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
I found it. Here we go. On the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, gatesfoundation.org, their leadership council consists of, oh, look, there's Dr. Fauci. Interesting. So let's make sure we get back to the puzzle piece and we'll wrap up today's show. The big idea.
Right.
Al Gore is calling for a big reset. All right? Al Gore is calling for a big reset. The only way to make the big reset possible is to fundamentally change America and to create a crisis. All right? So Dr. Fauci, step one, funds the Wuhan lab, which does gain-of-function research. And for folks out there that don't know what gain-of-function research is, everybody should know that. Let's look up gain-of-function research.
Well, and they had to do this in Wuhan because is that allowed here in the U.S.?
It's not allowed.
Highly illegal.
Here it is.
That's
This
right.
is according to the NIH. This is Dr. Fauci's own website. It states gain-of-function research where you has the potential to enhance the pathogenicity or transmissibility of potential pandemic pathogens. Why would you want to take a bat out of a virus and try to increase its transmissibility of a naturally occurring virus? Why would you want to do that? Why? That's sick. So you go
Well,
over
here in
to
America, we don't.
So you go over to China, you fund the lab. That's what Dr. Fauci does. Then while that's happening, while no one's talking about it, you start buying up land in Texas. Why would you do that? So you're buying up land in Texas. And then what you do is now the crisis begins.
Right.
And while the crisis begins, everyone gives up their rights for a little bit of potential safety. They give up their freedoms. And while we're worried about hiding from a virus that's about as dangerous as the common flu, and by the way, the CDC allows people to die. You're allowed to die with the coronavirus, not from the coronavirus. So if you die of a heart attack, but you also had coronavirus at the time of death, you can chalk it up as that.
Or if you were in a motorcycle accident.
There you go.
As one patient revealed to me just earlier this week.
Yes. So we have inflated cases, inflated deaths, inflated fear. People give up their rights. They shut down their businesses. And now Al Gore is calling for a great reset. Jason, am I missing something?
Not at all. I mean, you're hitting it on the head, and this is one thing. You're not missing anything. Everybody else is missing this. I
giving
guarantee you there are
facts.
a
I
lot of
think
people who
while-
have not even heard this.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people thought, they were in life playing checkers. There's some people you're talking about playing some chess
That's what's happening
for
folks.
several years now.
That's what happens. And so now, without
And
any
this
further
is their
ado,
big move.
this is their
I mean,
big move.
it's now or never. Like they have to take this opportunity, make the big reach, and go for the gusto. Because if not, then the whole thing unravels and you move on and you've avoided such crisis. But yeah, it's all loaded up and ready to go in this big move.
And folks, consider my motive. Am I trying to sell you something? No. Why would I do this? Is it in fact, Jason, if I was working on a book called How to Lose Friends Quickly, this would be the show.
Yeah.
This would be the audio version of that show.
Oh,
whenever you
100%.
share the truth and people don't want to hear it,
Right.
they're like, I better attack you then. So I'm not sharing this because I don't have any motive. I have nothing to sell you. So folks, wake up, do the research. Hopefully this screen share impacts you and helps you. And we're going to end the show with a boom. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom.